The following podcast contains spoilers and words like piss, shit, and fuck. We watch the thing. We watch the thing. Hello everybody and welcome back to We Watched a Thing. As always, you've got Billy in your ear holes and you've got a very special guest this week. It's someone I've wanted on the show for years and years and years now, and we finally made it happen. It's Nick, formerly Epic Film Guy and now of Nikoli's Kitchen. How you doing, mate?
Liz, it's fantastic to be here. Oh. Funny, you don't look like Liz from Movie Reviews and 20 Views.
I don't. But we have been recording with Liz, and there was a little bit of a calamity.
Ooh, my goodness, yeah.
So I am now logged in as Liz, which is it's adorable, isn't it?
This has been too many years in the making. I don't even do a movie podcast anymore. Like, that's how long it's been. This has been something that we have tried to put together for years and years and years. So I am super, super thrilled to be here.
Me too. And this is the film to do it, because I know how much, I mean, firstly, spoilers, I know how much you loved this film, which is rare. Like, usually when I have a guest, I don't know what they thought of the movie, but, you know, I follow you on the social media. We're Facebook friends. I've seen you post about it. So I can't think of anyone better to talk about this movie with, honestly.
I love it. I really, and I was not a fan of Reboot at all. Reboot really soured me. And I really expected to go into this and I wasn't going to get that old vibe, like that old View Askewniverse kind of thing. Cause I love these View Askewniverse movies. My oldest son is named after Brody and Mallrats. Like, I mean, that's just how like ingrained into my life, my childhood, these movies are. So I don't know. Like I really was hesitant sitting down in the theater to see this movie.
Yeah, well, let's get straight into it then. Clerks III is a 2022 American comedy film written, produced, directed, and edited by Kevin Smith. It stars Brian O'Halloran, Jeff Anderson, Trevor Fehrman, Austin Zajur, Jason Mewes, Rosario Dawson, and of course Kevin Smith himself. It's a standalone sequel to Clerks and Clerks II, and it's the 9th overall film in the View Askewniverse. And what is it about, Nick?
So Randal has a heart attack, and in the wake of his heart attack and recovery, decides that they've been working in a convenience store all this time, and it feels like they've had a crazy interesting life. Of course they could make a movie about their life, so they set about making a movie of their life, which is essentially making the first Clerks movie.
Yeah, that basically covers it off. So, I don't think Kevin Smith is one of those filmmakers who feels so intimate. Even to this day, he's no longer like the real indie kid he was when he started. But I feel like Kevin Smith fans we really have this feeling of feeling like we're in on something special. Like, you feel like you know the guy, and maybe that's just because, especially through his podcasts, he's become so personal and open and talkative. But I do think there's something really special about being a part of this fan base. Do you remember, you said obviously already, like, your eldest son is named Brody after the character. I used to have a turtle called Randal, because not the same as a son. But do you remember what the first View Askewniverse film you saw was? Was it Clerks back in 94?
I don't think I didn't see Clerks in theaters. I wasn't that lucky, but I had to have been one of those people that discovered it on probably what DVD was new-ish around that time frame. So I definitely owned a DVD copy of it. It had to have been Clerks. It had to have been, because I remember seeing Mallrats when that came out, and I was like really, really hyped to see it. So it had to have been Clerks. Had to have been.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
My memory.
What's your favorite to this day?
It's for sentimental reasons, and I know people always come at it all the time, but I just, like I said, my son is named after Brody and Mallrats. It's Mallrats. But like when I was a kid, like when I was a teenager, like my best friend and I literally watched between the the Batman films at the time. I saw Batman and Robin in the theaters with his family, but like those movies and Mallrats and Clerks, especially Mallrats, like it seemed like we just watched Mallrats on like an endless loop. And he died in 1999. He got in a car accident, like when he was 19, 20 years old. So just even for that reason alone, like Mallrats, like sentimentally is just always going to mean the most to me in this universe. If I had to, like, outside of that, if I had to remove the nostalgia, the sentiment and all that from it, it's probably Dogma. I love just how well realized that movie is. It's such a fun movie.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah. I genuinely love all of them. I'm the guy who actually likes Jersey Girl even. You know, and I think obviously you brought up Reboot. Reboot is not a good movie, and it feels like it's the first film that to me really, really felt downhill in Kevin Smith's filmography, because I love Tusk. I think Tusk in its own weird little way is a really interesting movie. Yoga Hosers not so much, but yeah, Reboot was just bad. So I was the same. I was really, really hesitant going into this because I love these characters so much. I thought the second film did a great job of continuing this kind of saga. So let's get right on into it then. Tell me about your expectations going into the film. Like you said that were you cautiously optimistic?
I was cautiously optimistic because at the very least, it wasn't going to be the Jay and Silent Bob reboot thing. Like, I at least expected its energy to kind of be in the vein of Clerks and Clerks 2. Like, you're getting Jeff Anderson back. You're getting Brian O'Halloran back. So I was at least more... I was just much more anticipating this than I kind of expected to be. Like, watching the trailer, like, you know, you walk away from the trailer with, like, Smith very famously had a heart attack. He almost died a few years ago. So you can tell, like, that he's kind of probably making this movie from a little bit more of a personal place. And like, so like I said, Reboot, it just left a sour taste in my mouth. And like, I have loved every View Askewniverse movie up to that point. Like, to say nothing of like any of the rest of his movies or anything like that, but like the View Askewniverse stuff, I have always loved. So I went in wanting to love this movie, and I was really not sure if I was going to, because I wasn't sure if he was going to do another reboot style thing. I wasn't sure if Harley Quinn Smith was going to show up in like the entire runtime of this thing again. And then I would have been like, no.
Yeah. I'm a little bit more of a mixed bag than you. Same. My expectations were cautiously optimistic, and I think for the most part they were met. But we'll get into that. Yeah. I want to start with the actors though, because Jeff Anderson, I love so much. I think he is just so fantastic. And I like these guys. It's almost unfair to really even call them actors. Like Brian O'Halloran, obviously, I think back in the day he was more of an actor's actor. I think that he was like the theater kid who kind of got into Clerks. Jeff Anderson was not an actor at all, and to this day he's a recluse really these days. Yeah. But I think the cast do so well in this film. I loved catching up with them again.
And I mean, I just want to put this out on the table, like right out front, that I did not know that Brian O'Halloran had that performance in him. Yeah. Like I really did not expect. And this is these movies have, like, you expect to hear like a lot of crass humor. You expect to hear, like, you know, just the dumbest setups, the silliest setups for jokes, like a lot of pop culture, like rapid fire pop culture laden dialogue. But I didn't expect to go into this movie and come out of it like really like emotional, like really moved. And I feel like it's maybe because I didn't expect that. Maybe that's why I enjoyed this movie as much as I did, because you come out of this movie, or at least I did, like I was really, really emotional when I came out of this movie.
So, I was exactly know the same. The drama took me so far by surprise, and it hits you hard. I don't know if it's just because, you know, I know that this is only the third Clerks film, but we are talking about a span now of nearly 30 years.
Yeah,
like that you've been with these characters. And I don't know about yourself, I was a massive fan of the Clerks animated series as well. So, there's all this extra kind of lore and stuff and time that you've spent with these characters.
Yeah.
It hit me hard, same. Like some of those scenes between these two guys, or like you say, even Brian O'Halloran on his own, the performance that he gives in those really emotional beats of the film, yeah, they hit you really hard. And I was the same. I watched this at home kind of because it just dropped on, for digital download. And I watched this kind of in the middle of the night, couldn't sleep. And by about 5 a.m., I was like, oh, wow, I don't know how to process this. Like it actually hit me much harder than I thought it would.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that there's a lot of people out there that can really kind of connect with Randal's character, or I'm sorry, with Dante's character in that perspective as well, because how many of us have had it all figured out? Like you've got all the answers. And after Clerks II, like that, of course, is like the whole thing. He's figured out like his whole life. He's got Rosario Dawson, and they're gonna, she's pregnant, and they're gonna do all this different stuff. And then like right away, the film immediately lets you know that she's gone, that she died.
She's not there. Yeah.
And then like, and I was just like, okay, like when, like, and then I'm just full of questions. I'm like, okay, well, when did she die? What happened? And then like when Randal has to go to the hospital because he's had the heart attack, like you get that kind of flashback of Dante, like, and she was still pregnant. Like, so like the time span from like the end of Clerks 2 to when she dies is like so
months.
Short.
Yeah. It's like 6 months tops.
That to me is just like, and you think about Clerks 2, like to kind of like duck into the thematic arc of that movie about them really kind of taking their agency, like, okay, we need to make a plan and like actually do something with our lives. And like, they're caught in this state of arrested development and whatnot. And they actually like experienced some growth through that point. They go and buy the Quick Stop. They're like, we're going to make this happen. Like, we're actually going to take command of our own lives for a change. And then like, you get the sense that in this movie, like that event, like Dante had it all figured out. Finally he was going to actually like live his own life on his terms, and her being ripped away from him and his happily ever after, as he talks about in the movie, being ripped away from him has immediately, I feel like, just shot him back into that state of arrested development where now he feels trapped in his own life again. And I can connect with that, like on a human level. Like I've been in those kinds of situations before where like all of a sudden it feels like your whole life has just been ripped out from underneath you. And then like being like how, like, and I'm sure that you can echo this sentiment as well, but like feeling like you're stuck in one place. Like I feel like in some ways, even in my life now, like I'm stuck in one place. Yeah. So I'm seeing this character who is so distraught because of everything that's been ripped away from him. Like, God, man. And this is like, for this movie, Clerks 2 is the same way for this with me, because I grew up with these characters. I grew up as they grew up, and I entered the same age range that they did. So it's just maybe not everybody, like maybe different ages are going to react to this thing differently than somebody that is our age would. But you watch this movie and it's like literally like it kind of socks you in the gut with like all the crappy things about life at our age,
Yeah, it's true. And this is where, when I said I'm a little bit more mixed on the film, it's not so much that, there are some things I'm really positive on, some things I'm negative. It's more like I don't know how to process it because it is so emotional and affecting. Like I remember when The Force Awakens came out, there were a lot of people who were very, very, very unhappy about the fact that Han and Leia did not get their happy ending. That we were left with them kind of getting together, and now here we are 20 odd years later, and oh no shit, like they're like, how did that happen and why did that happen? And I feel it's hard not to feel that way here, because it's like, fuck, like, why did this have to happen? Like, why? But I think that's actually something really important and special about this film and about Smith's entire filmography, is that it's not always the happy ending, because that's not life. Like you look at Chasing Amy, which, like, can you even call that movie a rom-com based on the way that it ends? I don't know if you can. Like, not everyone always gets their happy ending, and Dante just didn't. And, you know, that's this character, and that's him, and it's kind of hard to feel okay about that in those moments, like when he goes to visit the gravestone. And that's the first moment where you really fully understand, I think, exactly what happened. I think that's the moment when he talks about the drunk driver and, you know, that it killed both of them. And it's hard. Like,
and you still, like, you feel the grief that he is now trapped in, and you feel kind of all of the pain that he unfortunately still carries with him, like, the entire time. And I think when you talk about not, like, really knowing how to process this movie, I think that's because we grew up with these characters, like I said. So we, above all, want them, and we adore these characters so much. They're brothers to us. You know, we want them to have their happy ending because we want to feel like it's possible for us to have ours too.
Absolutely.
In every way.
Yes.
You know,
100%. That's it.
And when we can't have that, when you see it stolen away. But then I think you peel back that layer of the onion, and I think you really look at not just this movie, but like the entire, all three of the Clerks movies. Life isn't about ultimately where you end up. Life is about all of those beautiful little moments, like those beautiful little moments of
100%.
friendship.
Yeah.
As you go through life, like, and that's kind of like what this movie is. And it's such a painful thing for Dante because, of course, he's reliving all of this stuff now that he's lost Rosario Dawson's character. He's thinking about all of these different things that he's now lost and feeling trapped in this life, while Randal simultaneously has this kind of second awakening, and he's like, I have to relive all these beautiful moments that I've lived in my life, because this is literally all I'm ever going to do. This is all I'm ever going to be in my life. So I want to remember all of that, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Like, what Clerks did so well was capture and make beauty out of the mundane. It's like a regular day working in a grocery store is something to be celebrated and viewed on the cinema. You know, like, that's what it did so interestingly. And I think that that's something that's really continued through. And what I love about Dante's arc in this film is that it's actually interesting. His life has kind of always been, as you said, this state of arrested development. Up to this point, that has been through his kind of lack of drive and decision and everything. But the state he's in now, this is the first time really where something out of his control has put him into this state.
Yeah.
As you say, his wife, his baby, ripped away from him.
Yep. Nothing
to do with any of his choices, and it's put him right back into that same state. And I think it's a really interesting concept to play with.
That's why it makes you not know how to process this movie. That's why because it's literally, in a sense, like, to all of us who love these characters, who have grown with these characters since Clerks, it's like a gut punch from Smith to us, like a reminder of, like, life can rip it all away from you in an instant. And, like, that kind of immediately ties into, like, and you can tell, again, like, this is Smith post heart attack. Like, you can tell this is him connecting to an entirely different plane of existence almost. And like, it's strange to take this movie where these characters are so wrapped up in again, like, stupid pop culture references and things like that. But simultaneously, you've got heavy themes of life and death and the meaning of life and all that stuff, like teetering, like swinging on a clothesline in the middle of this whole thing. At the same time, and it's untrodden territory for a Clerks movie, for a View Askewniverse movie, even.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So while we're talking about the story, to some extent, I mean, can I ask you about the overall plot? Like, obviously, you've got the drive at the start of the film, like you said, is Randal has this heart attack, which obviously is based on Smith's own experience.
Yeah.
The doctor who operates on Randal is actually played by the doctor who operated on Smith. That's not an actress. Like, it's that heavily meta. Yeah. It is that heavily meta. And the meta-ness of this film, it's amazing that it works after how poorly the meta-ness was handled in Reboot. But here it's really fun, like seeing these guys recreate these scenes from this 30-year-old film now. It really worked, and I liked the plot. Where were you on Randal's heart attack? And I guess, I mean, I want to ask about how you feel about the ending.
Oh man, we'll get to the ending, I guess. But I love the plot of this movie because, again, this is Smith post heart attack, so you can tell this is him looking back at the film that gave him his career. Literally, his life would not be what it is. That's that one of those moments, one of those profound moments that completely changes everything about your life, like Becky dying for Dante, is him making Clerks. So you can tell this is him looking back at this thing in his life that has literally come to pretty much define who and what he is. Like, it's his entire brand, and he's looking back on this with so much love and fondness for everything that it was and everything that is given to him. And I think that in those scenes, you could have made this like really like tongue in cheek, and you could have made it come off really poorly, like in Reboot, like you're talking about. But I think there's an earnestness to it.
Yeah,
because it's Smith having to have faced down his own mortality to look at it. And I think there's just such a genuine gratitude for what Clerks is and has been, and what it meant to his life, and kind of as a projection out, like, to his audience's life. There's such an earnestness to it that I don't think you couldn't have faked that. And I don't think that Smith pre-heart attack could have even written it. I think it's something that only came through because it was Smith facing down his own mortality. It's him on that film set after having had a heart attack, like, shooting these scenes now through that lens. Like, it completely changed the way that he views this world, his own world, and everything. I love that plot. Like, I really, really loved it. And I mean, if you're a fan of this universe, especially, it's just amazing to see, like, number one, the number of these random nobodies they got to come back to do the same, like the Chuli's gum guy, like all these different people that just came back to do this again. Like, that is so good. That's beyond good, man.
I agree. And it's interesting that you say, pre-heart attack Smith couldn't have written this, because we all know now that he's rewritten this film like 3 times. They were going to go into production on this movie, must have been nearly 10 years ago now.
Ages ago.
And I'm curious to see what that would have been like. And I know that this exact storyline of kind of Randal making a movie was lifted from what was going to be a film-length episode of the animated series.
Yeah.
And then, the way that he's kind of collected all these together and put them into what we get here, which you're right, I don't think it could have had this level of heart pre-heart attack, because you're right, there's real love in the way that he's looking back on filming it, and Randal's kind of exuberance for pulling this off, like, he's literally one of my favorite characters of all time, and I love seeing him like this in this film. It's so much fun. It's they filmed the movie within the movie in black and white, obviously, because the original Clerks was filmed in black and white, but like, to literalize it, like, it's like there's a rose-colored tint to those scenes. It's just him looking back with so much fondness and love at this thing that has meant so much to him, that has defined who and what he is, and he's presenting it to an audience that also has grown up with these characters, that also adores this universe, and it plays beautifully. It plays so beautifully. Now, obviously, the film is a comedy. We've barely spoken about the comedy at all, because the drama really does outshine it. But I must say, I was surprised at still how funny the film was. I don't think that all of the jokes land, but that's a Kevin Smith film these days. You brought up the doctor in the OR. I don't need her dressed as a witch. That doesn't do anything for me. I don't. Yeah. But I think that a lot of the humor still lands really well. I mean, most people I've seen talking about the humor in this film are bringing up Elias, Trevor Fehrman. did you find his kind of goth shtick funny?
Here's the thing about Elias, okay? Clerks 2, as a foil to Randal, I love him. I think he's perfect. He is 100% useless in this movie. He's completely pointless. He plays out like an afterthought, like, well, what are we going to do with Elias? We can't just have him just here doing nothing. So they came up with this random, and don't get me wrong, the outfits, hilarious. All the outfits that they dressed him in are amazing. But like the character, it's like him himself, like that character, like he's pointless. He's so pointless to this movie.
I was the same. I don't understand people talking about how funny the only kind of recurring joke with him that really got me going was the kites for some reason. Just him constantly going on about these kites. That got me laughing. But I agree. Apart from that, he's like, what are you doing in this film?
Yeah, I didn't feel him at all. And you know, I kind of almost wanted the movie, and maybe this is selfish on my part, I'll put that out there from the outset, but like, it's going back to the convenience store. It's Dante and Randal just back in the quick stop doing their thing. It feels almost out of place to have a third character shoved into the middle of that the whole time. You know, I don't feel like he really, like, when they're in movies and Clerks 2, like, it makes sense because obviously, well, you need more employees just in a literal sense. But like I said, he works perfectly because he's a foil for Randal in that movie. You know, because Dante's got his own plot with Becky and you know, whether or not he's going to get married, move to Florida and all that different kind of stuff. In this, what is he doing in this movie? Because now in this movie, Dante is kind of back to being Randal's foil, the way that he was in the first Clerks. So like, you just don't need Elias. I don't think. I just don't really think you needed him. And I think they brought him along because he's part of the quote unquote family now. And like, you got to throw him in there somewhere. But yeah, the outfits were hilarious. That's about the only takeaway that I had positive from Elias. I did love the outfits. They were hilarious. But like, every time they dedicated any portion of screen time to anything other than just seeing him dressed ridiculously, I was like,
You know what I found really interesting is that like the first and second Clerks movies are almost entirely movies based off of discussions around pop culture. Yeah. Like they kind of like there's a loose plot that runs through, but there's not really overly too much. This film I found really interesting that you almost go into it expecting a retread of that, and that's kind of what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
But there are very few of those kind of, you know, discussions around, say, Star Wars, for example. And I don't think that they really sing as much as... I think that the story and the plot and the kind of scenes of reconstructing Clerks are so much fun in this film that... Which actually really surprised me, because what I've always loved about Smith is his dialogue and the kind of musicality of that and the pop culture discussions. And with this film, I think that was really overshined by just the fun of the plot.
Yeah, no, I would 100% agree. And it's strange territory for a Kevin Smith movie because you're waiting for that, you know, whip smart pop culture laden dialogue where they're arguing about, you know, two things that, and obviously we're in, you know, the era of podcasting, which, you know, of course Smith is a huge part of. And, you know, you're expecting to see like this battle of nerds arguing about nerd things, you know, cause that's like the whole, that's like, and I mean, even other like Mallrats is all about that. Like Brody's the comic book nerd and everything. Yeah. You know, so yeah, you're expecting a lot of that, but like, yeah, I feel like they made like a throwaway Star Wars joke about like wanting to talk about Star Wars or whatever, and they were like, what, and get sued by Disney or something. Like it was just like a throwaway kind of thing. Like, yeah, I mean, I get exactly what you're saying, and I think that because this movie focused more on the heart of this, the beating heart of this whole universe. Let's face it. Yeah, maybe there just wasn't as much room for it. Maybe this film just didn't need it as much as, you know, a Clerks 2 needs it, where, you know, obviously you're going to have that battle of Star Wars versus Lord of the Rings back in Clerks 2 or whatever, you know?
Yeah. 100%. You know, one thing, it's really interesting. We're half an hour into this record now, and we actually have not even mentioned Jay and Silent Bob. Which is weird for a Jay and Silent Bob film. How did you feel about Jay and Bob in this film running the dispensary?
So first of all, perfect place to put them. Number one, to running a weed dispensary, like the scenes of them with like the giant joints and stuff. Like it's perfect. And like the conversation on marijuana has gone so far, like from 1995 up to where we are now. You know, that it's no longer like this terrible taboo thing. Smith said something. So I got the Fathom Events screening of this here in the United States. So it came with like a little making of vignette after the movie. Right. Yeah. And Smith talked about this movie. Basically, it's not a Jay and Silent Bob movie, so it just has just enough of them. Like, it punches them in for a joke and then it pulls them back out. It punches them in for a joke and pulls them out. So like, you don't feel like you're getting kind of saturation bombed with Jay and Silent Bob stuff, which in the case of Reboot was just, the less said about Reboot, the better. But, you know, I feel like, I feel like this uses them to that perfect degree. I agree 100% with his sentiments. When he said it, I just was like nodding along. I'm like, yeah, you use them in the perfect amount. You punch them in here, they make a joke or whatever, and then you pull them back out. And then that's perfect. I did love, like, and you're a movie guy too. So obviously you must have loved, like Jay talking about Silent Bob, like, had to shoot the movie in black and white. He's like, Scorsese over here's got to shoot it in black and white. That
was great. The fact that Silent Bob is the DP, and that was really, really funny. That was the funniest Jay and Silent Bob bits to me too. Were like when Jay is trying to act in that scene, which famously is how it like really went. He just couldn't string lines together. Yeah, that was just so funny. And then when Kevin Smith just chimes in with "fuck it, I'll do it." You know, it was really, really funny. I agree that they were just the perfect amount, because they're the kind of characters, because they are zany, and for the most part, like, Silent Bob brings a bit of heart when he speaks, and kind of always has. That's been his kind of funny shtick, is he doesn't speak, and when he does, it's like just full of emotion.
It's that really one poignant worded thing in the movie, you know.
Yeah. But apart from that, you know, like they are dick jokes, and that's what they're there for. And so, like, too much of them can be too much, but I agree, in this it was the perfect amount. It was really just good.
Perfect. Just absolutely perfect. Like, you couldn't have, I mean, and maybe, you know, especially after Reboot, maybe I'm just not as hot on like a whole, like, seeing too much of them. So I was already like going into this, like, just kind of hoping like you maybe got them as much as you got them in Clerks, like a little bit here and there, just like a sprinkling, and that's it, you know? I'm glad that you didn't get overwhelmed by them.
Yeah, I think the one of the most interesting uses of Jay and Silent Bob to me is in Dogma. I think that's where where they are quite a heavy element of the plot, but somehow they don't overrun it. It's interesting, because up to that point they were more to kind of just cameos, you know, where they pop in and out and make little jokes. And Dogma was the first film where they were like really quite a heavy part of the plot, but didn't
they're like
overrun
mains
it.
In that movie. Yeah, they're literally main characters in that movie. Yeah,
yeah. Well, we're at that point. I have to ask you, and I really have to know, how did you feel about the end of this film? Did it shock you when it happened?
It shocked me, number one. Yes, it absolutely did. But then, like, reflecting back on it, I loved it because we talked about Smith giving you that gut punch of, this is what life is really like sometimes everything, that happy ever after, is ripped away from you. And like, really, I mean, of course, you know, they bring Veronica back from Clerks in this movie. Like, it was really nice to see her again and see her and Dante kind of have like that little connection and stuff. But I was hoping that they wouldn't, I mean, aside from obviously they have the scene of them, you know, outside banging in her car, but I was glad that they didn't kind of try to recouple them and like go back to like that initial thing in Clerks. But, you know, I feel like with the way that Smith kind of sucker punched us with that, and we've seen Dante try desperately to grow over a few movies now, and I feel like he wasn't ever gonna, like, this is literally all his life was ever gonna be. You know, I don't think, I think that he was too trapped in his grief that he would have literally lived this day until he died behind that cash register at that convenience store. You know, that's literally what would have happened. So like, I mean, honest to God, like I kind of really love it, because it in some way, it's not a happy ending by any means, but like, I think it's it's the only way this character's journey could have ended, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and like, he's been trying to kill Dante since Clerks 1. It's the one element of the film that for me I am really torn on, and I think it's more the execution rather than anything else, because it is the one big emotional beat of the film that for me feels constructed rather than authentic. I think it feels highly convenient for him to die of a heart attack. We're talking a month or so after Randal has a heart attack.
Yeah.
And, there is the doctor has that line where she says to Dante, if you eat the same as him, like, you better change your diet as well. And it's like, that's kind of just there so that when you look back on the film, it doesn't come completely out of nowhere.
One little seed planted, yeah.
Yeah, and so while I agree that while story-wise it fits and it's a fitting ending for the character, it's just that one bit that just doesn't feel authentic in any way to me. And I wish that there had been some better way that could have been executed. And honestly, I kind of don't know how. I don't know how that could ever not feel false to me. Yeah?
I got it. Okay, so it ends with Dante being taken away from the convenience store in the ambulance. Ambiguous. You don't know. Like, imagine if the movie just ends there, because that scene, like that sequence between he and Randal, when Dante just breaks down and like this is kind of all of his grief just like getting spilled out all at once. And then he has his heart attack. Like, I mean, granted, like that would piss so many people off. Like, I really get it. But like, imagine that. Like, imagine if it doesn't answer the question for you and it just kind of leaves it up to you,
Yep.
Maybe that would have, I mean, that probably would have just been like, God, what the hell?
Yeah, because there's just something about how authentic the film has felt up to that point.
Yeah.
Like, even Randal's heart attack, while yes, it's very clearly about Smith's heart attack, and you know that he wouldn't have written it this way if that hadn't happened to him, it still feels like it fits. But the ending is the one bit that for me, it's just kind of that too convenient almost.
Yeah.
But as you say, it fits the character, so it's hard not to feel okay about it, but I just kind of don't.
No, I get it. And I would dare say it's because of that emotional attachment that we have to these characters. You want to roll up, I mean, in a filmic sense, to the quick stop forever and see Randal and Dante just doing their Randal and Dante thing forever.
True. Yeah.
Because I think, and in terms of, I think it from my perspective, like, I'm selfish in that way. I always want them. I always want that. I want more, because I love them so much. But if I look at it from like the character's perspective, how much that character was suffering and like how much grief he was racked in, and like literally everything good. Like, they had their whole lives planned out. Like, they had made the decisions. They bought the quick stop. They were on that upward trajectory after Clerks 2. Like, life was going to be okay from here. Life was going to be great from here. And that event, losing Becky, it literally broke Dante. It broke him so completely that he was never going to be whole again. And I think in that way, like, for the character to get to that end, I think that at least he's not broken anymore. And maybe that's how I completely agree with you in terms of the inauthenticity of it versus everything else we've seen in terms of how the film was made up to that point. I agree.
Yeah.
It definitely does feel like it's a little bit, it's kind of maybe more manufactured to pull on your heartstrings a little bit. But God, he was broken. Like, he was broken. And these characters were, he was never coming back from that. He was never going to get out of that.
Definitely,
so I don't mind him having died in that sense. Yeah, because I don't know, like, it almost like it's almost like a, he's like an old dog that has cancer and a bum leg and can't see and is pooping everywhere. So like, Smith is putting him out of his misery. Almost.
Yeah, where you can genuinely say he's in a better place.
Yeah,
which one of those cases. Yeah. You live a lot closer than I do, obviously. Have you done the journey to the quick stop?
No, I never have. One of these days I really, really need to. I would absolutely love to. I love that this movie was entirely filmed in the state of New Jersey. They were really proud of that. And they went back to the original Quick Stop location, and they filmed it this that's so good. That's so good. I'm so glad that they did that for this one.
Yeah. I've made the pilgrimage. I've been there. Yeah.
God. So I live probably like a couple hours away. You're a half of a planet away. Man.
Yeah. My wife, we were on our honeymoon. We road tripped the whole states. We went through, 35 or something states, and then up through Canada as well.
More states than I have.
We didn't actually stay in Jersey, but I had to go. We did a day trip from Philly. We went. And went to Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash and bought some comic books. And I was talking to the guys there, to Walt and, Brian. I was like, yeah, I'm going to go over to the Quick Stop. And they were like, why the fuck would you go there? The place is a dump.
Tell him, Steve, Dave.
But yeah, so I did the whole thing, got my wife to take some black and white pictures of me looking through eggs and milk. I asked the clerk if I could stand behind the counter, and they were like, absolutely not. No. So, yeah. All right, well, all in all, how are you scoring Clerks 3 out of 10?
Probably 8. I would say 8. I hadn't really landed 100% on it. I think the Elias factor is really the thing that drags this movie down for me. He's a waste of time. Just get him out of the movie. It's just, then you could have focused more on the kind of relationship between Randal and Dante, which really, that's why nobody bought a ticket being like, oh God, I can't wait to see what Elias is up to in this. Nobody cared. Nobody cared.
100% lockstep. I'm an 8 out of 10 as well. I thought this film was really, really good. It has its flaws, but I think it's a fitting ending. And I would so happily watch this again. I'd sit down and watch this entire trilogy back to back, and I know that I would have a fantastic time with it.
That's what I need to do. I need to just literally one day just binge all 3 right in a row and just kind of watch those character arcs just progress through that entire series.
Yeah, I think it works really well. I think it's a really fitting end to this trilogy. Yeah. And it makes me sad to say that, because I would love to see Randal. And I guess the thing with Kevin Smith is you never know, he might do another kind of meta reboot type thing, and Randal might pop up every now and then, but it won't be the same without Dante around. I think this is a really nice end to these characters' journeys.
Yeah, I do not want to see Clerks 4 with Randal and Elias, unless the plot of Clerks 4 is Dante's ghost haunting Randal or something. I don't even know. I don't even know where he would go with that plot point or whatever. Yeah. No, please God, no. I don't want to see Clerks 4 with Elias and Randal.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. This has been so great to finally have you on the show and to chat about this movie with you, where we both had such a great connection to it. Can you tell everybody about Nikoli's Kitchen and where they can find you and what you're doing over there?
Nikoli's Kitchen is all about my journey of scratch-made food and positive energy, because that's all I want to do is just try to make the world a better place. That's literally the only thing I want to do. So I'm sure all my information will be wherever in the show notes or wherever online. I'd rather leave anybody listening with take a moment today to just do a kindness for yourself, a small kindness, a large kindness, whatever it is. Even if it's just you telling yourself, something good, just be good and be kind to yourself, be kind to somebody else. Try to do something every day to just put a little bit more good into the world. I think the way the world is nowadays, I think it's filled with too many people who want to tear each other down for whatever difference they might have with each other, instead of just building each other up. Be kind, love each other, and be good to yourselves.
That's the kind of wonderful positivity you get from your show. It really is just like a beam of brightness. And I love how much you love food. That's a passion that I know you and I share. We're Facebook friends. I quite often see you firing up the grill and smoking some meat, which is a massive hobby of mine as well. And we're coming right into grilling season now. It's spring, the sun is out. I've got a brisket ready to smoke.
Grilling season never ends, Millie.
Well, that's absolutely true. There's nothing better than smoking a chicken on a freezing cold day. It's, it's the best.
See, I live in the Northern Hemisphere, so my Christmas routine, ever since I was in college, Christmas Day, I am outside standing in front of a grill. I'm grilling chicken every Christmas. I've done it for the past like 12 or 13 years now. And I've got to get you over on my show, because I do my little Table for Two interview series where I make like one of your favorite dishes, and we just kind of talk and riff about life for an hour.
Anytime.
So we got to make that happen
anytime. You're a wonderful soul. You're a great personality. I'd recommend your show to anybody, and absolutely, I'd come over there anytime. That would be amazing. Yeah.
God, I'm gonna have to get my whole mic set up outside for the grill and everything. I did it once.
I'll pick something inside. There's lots of inside stuff I cook. I'm a bit of a basic bitch as well. One of my favorite dishes, comfort food, is curried sausages. Like, if I know it's just going to be me at home eating, I'll just make myself a giant pot of curried sausages. And because I'm a big fat fatty, instead of doing them with like mashed potato or boiled potato, which I have done in the past, I do them with like real crispy roast potato with a ton of oil. And it's so good.
Man.
It's lunchtime here, so
now I need to go fire up the grill now or something.
But thank you so much for joining me. This has been great. Next week, I'll have my lovely wife Noosk back on the show. It's Halloween, and I've convinced her to watch The Conjuring, which she has always been terrified by. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then the week after that, Toph is back on the show. We're starting our marathon of all 3 Lord of the Rings films, it was an epic day. We recorded last week, and we were going until about 3 a.m. So
I cannot wait. I mean, give it to me.
I know that you're a giant Lord of the Rings fan. I can promise you that we had nothing but positive things to say. It was the longest record we've ever done, and it was worth every minute of it. So that's going to be all of November. 3 weeks in a row in November, it's just Lord of the Rings. All right. Well, in the meantime, if you want to get in touch with me, you can do that at wewatchedathing.com or wewatchedathing@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the handle at wewatchedathing. If you want to help support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/wewatchedathing, and I'll catch you next week.
Bye.